will now begin. Please take your seats. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage the moderator for the launch of this year's edition of the Atlantic Currents, Senior Fellow at the Policy Center for the New South, Bouchra Rahmouni.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good morning. The Policy Center of the New South is very pleased to share with you the 5th edition of the Atlantic Currents, Overcoming the Choke Points. This edition is ordered by a coalition of experts from various horizons, universities, think tanks, NGOs, and international organizations. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me to welcome Mrs. Hafsat Abiola, a great African woman, Mr. Youness Abouyoub, Mr. Rachid Houdaigui, and Mr. Youssef Mahmoud. Please have a seat. So, this edition covers issues as diverse as migration, culture, trade, food security, finance, climate change, and security and defense. So, I'm gonna stop here and give the floor to our panelists. First to speak is Hafsat Abiola. Hafsat, you wrote the foreword of this edition in which you highlighted that, and I will quote you, it's a wonderful, about this edition, it's a wonderful trove of ideas and innovative thinking, and you recommend to democratize those ideas. So, could you please precise what are the main ideas to democratize, and how can we achieve this objective?
Well, what I found, thank you, Bouchra. What I found really fascinating about this edition was how many different scholars you'd pulled together, experts in different fields, people that had worked with the United Nations, advised NATO, activists from civil society, so many different leaders in different sectors around the question of thinking not in reaction to global affairs, but really, in a way, setting new ground, offering new fields that we might explore to create a new kind of partnership in the world, a new kind of relationship between Africa, Latin America, Europe, the United States, And I found that very interesting. For example, it started with, the look at the triangular relationship, the cultural exchanges that we have. Yes, it was brought about in part by things like the slave trade, but it has created within Africa, for example, what the author Paulo Paranagua called linguistic capital, the kind of ways in which now there are major languages that are spoken in Africa that unite many people beyond the 3,000 African languages that people speak. And so it's a unifying force that allows for communication and dialogue between us on the continent and then also with our partners all over the world. And also there was a chapter on food security, which is looking at commercial exchanges, institutional arrangements, new kinds of technical partnerships that can boost food security in Africa and in Latin America, and comparing where Latin America is on, in terms of achieving food security, which they're farther ahead than Africa, but what Africa could learn from them. Normally we are always looking at ourselves and looking at Europe, but there are many reasons we can also look at Latin America. There are many similar issues of historical development, historical domination by other powers that Africa could learn from. And this, in the book, it offers those ideas. We also looked at climate change in this book. The fact that now there seems to be a kind of stiffening or rigidity between, in the world. The US has pulled out of the Paris Accord, and problems like this, and the fight between the North and South for who will take responsibility for climate change. We need to move beyond that, and we need to see where we can go next, because the world needs us as a global community to have a response on climate change. It also offers ideas on that, on NATO, on the security architecture for Europe. It was proposing new ideas for security architecture and looking at some of the approaches that NATO is taking because of the resistance from the US. It also looks at Trump as an individual, but his impact on the world and what it means. Is it the death of America's superpower status or soft power? Because it certainly has redefined the way the world looks at America. The book looks at that. So it looks at so very many issues. Then it looked also at the issue of the concept of the South, which has often been seen as something opposite to the North. But it's saying that we need to reclaim the term South. It goes through the history of how we had that term, how it came from the Bandung Conference in the 1950s, and it was an aspiration of people from the developing worlds to offer an alternative mode of development, which was then overtaken by ideological struggles between the communist world and the capitalist world. Well, the world has moved beyond that struggle today, but we still need to reclaim the autonomy of that era. So all of those things was well captured, and I have to commend you, Bouchra, for the incredible job you did in sourcing all these different experts, in pulling together their ideas into this sterling book. This is it. It's not particularly long, but it offers such brilliant, innovative thinking. As an African, I felt very proud to be reading this book and to be seeing that we're offering the world new ideas, not attacking, as is often the case when people in Africa are not happy about the state of affairs, we just attack. This is not a book that attacks. It's a book that offers alternative solutions, alternative strategies. Well done.
Thank you, Hafsat. Youness, you start your chapter by a Latin phrase, I think, bellum omnium contra omnes, which means the war of all against all. Does this phrase describe the current transatlantic relationship, or does it sum up a kind of legacy of Trump administration to the future generations?
Thank you, Bouchra. I chose to start that chapter with that phrase from Thomas Hobbes to try to show, starting from basically what President Trump in his first address to the United Nations General Assembly and the second address where he basically stated in very clear terms that the world as perceived by, from the Atlantic side, does not need an international governance system. And for me, the question is, if that's where the world is heading, if multilateralism does not have room to exist anymore, are we going towards that state of affair that Thomas Hobbes was describing centuries ago? So I tried to show first that President Trump is not the one who created that atmosphere. He is created by, I would say, a world spirit that is moving away little by little from multilateralism, from a world based on solidarity, even though that solidarity never really was fully conceived and implemented. But still, we had a system that functioned more or less for many decades. And because of what happened around the world during and after the Cold War, globalization, the internal and domestic affairs of the United States, the global challenges, I think the appetite for the multilateral approach has receded more and more. And whether we like it or not, the United States has always been, since it became the, or one of the main leaders around the world, has been the beacon of either progressive or less progressive ideas. So for me, President Trump cannot be accused of being the one who has created this. He is a product as much as a promoter of these kinds of ideas. So I try to question from the behavior of the new administration for the last 2 years whether we're going to deconstruct this international system that has basically survived, I would say, next year it's 100 years. So maybe it's time to look at multilateralism. I'm a big advocate of multilateralism, by the way, but it's probably time to look at it anew and see how we can reform it and make it stronger. Other countries, not only the United States, in Europe or elsewhere, are also questioning that system. It has not lived up to its promises, unfortunately. But we cannot blame the system and its institution only. It's also different member states that has contributed to this. And then I tried to show also, because the question was whether there will be a Trump's legacy around the world. President Trump and his policies, in a sense, show us the other face of the United States. The United States has, in my opinion, two main faces. One that is very progressive. It's the land of opportunities and freedom, institutions, rule of law. But it's also nativism. It's also white supremacy. It's also this. So it's not either or. The situation today is pushing more that negative side than the positive side of the United States that we have known for some period of time. And I am of the view that the soft power, the storytelling that the United States has produced and used in a very smart way. I remember this phrase that Stalin used once. He said, "Give me Hollywood, and I make sure that the people of the United States will be communist in 20 years." It's true in a way, because that soft power with all these institutions, cultural, diplomacy, all these assets have contributed to make the United States what it is today. It has contributed to make it able to drive agendas, to establish, to promote certain ideas without necessarily resorting to hard power immediately. But unfortunately, this has been receding even before President Trump. But President Trump has accelerated this. Now, that does not mean that there will be tomorrow another power that will basically substitute itself to the United States. I think we're going more and more to kind of multipolar system with a lot of disorders for the decades to come. Of course, I cannot say or tell exactly what would happen in the coming decades. But for me, the fact that what we see as policies promoted by the United States are not helping the United States to be that beacon of hope that a lot of people believed in. And because the state itself, in many countries around the world, is receding. Of course, the multilateral system that is based on the concept of state will also recede as we know it today. So the question is, what type of world we want? Is it possible to recreate something even better or not? I believe we can, but it's a matter of political choice.
Thank you, Youness. Youness, you conclude your chapter by quoting Gramsci.
Yes.
Et nous retrouvons Antonio Gramsci dans l'introduction de Rachid Houdaigui. Gramsci, vous avez surtout choisi une citation que nous retrouvons dans le cahier, c'est ça, le Prison Book.
Prison Books.
Prison Books.
I didn't know he used it. We did not.
Yeah, no. Alors la citation dit « Le vieux monde se meurt, le nouveau monde tarde à apparaître, et entre ce clair-obscur, des monstres surgissent. » Quels sont ces monstres, Rachid, et qui vont-ils finir par dévorer?
Merci beaucoup. Je ne savais pas que j'allais parler de monstres. Non, mais je crois que c'est une métaphore pour dire tout simplement... C'est une métaphore pour dire tout simplement que une évidence que nous connaissons tous, c'est que nous vivons une transition stratégique qui date de la fin des années 80, depuis les années 90, qui est toujours en mouvement. Et elle est complexe, elle est imprévisible, elle est chargée d'inquiétude et d'incertitude. Il y a la crise du multilatéralisme, comme elle a été expliquée. Il y a aussi le jeu de puissance, un jeu de puissance qui est aujourd'hui, se matérialise dans des espaces comme la Méditerranée de l'Est et aussi en Asie-Pacifique. Chine, États-Unis, rapport de rivalité sino-américain, russe, OTAN. Et troisième élément aussi fondamental, c'est qu'il y a les émergents, notamment l'Afrique, un continent qui est en train de, en fait, d'abord, il appelle à une redéfinition de la gouvernance mondiale, tout comme il exprime, disons, sa volonté d'indépendance dans le système international. Voilà. Alors moi, le sujet sur lequel j'ai travaillé, sur l'Alliance Atlantique et l'avenir de l'Alliance Atlantique dans cette dynamique mondiale, et par rapport à la question que se posent beaucoup de gens sur l'avenir de cette alliance et de l'OTAN. Et je crois que dans l'analyse de cette organisation, cette alliance, je crois qu'il faut donner plus d'espace à la réflexion qu'à la réaction. Et j'arrive au constat que, en dépit des déclarations de présidents américains à l'égard de cette organisation et de l'Alliance, ce sont des déclarations qui ont bousculé les certitudes de cette organisation, mais n'ont pas pour autant remis en cause son existence. De toute façon, même s'il voulait, disons, la disparition de cette organisation, il ne pourrait pas le faire, tout simplement parce qu'il y a le poids des institutions américaines. Le Pentagone est pour l'OTAN. Il y a aussi le fait qu'il ne peut pas faire abstraction des interdépendances de la mondialisation, aussi bien économique que sécuritaire. En plus, l'Alliance n'altère en aucun cas la liberté d'action des États-Unis dans le monde. Voilà. Et je dirais même, moi, l'OTAN est une sorte de aussi showroom de l'industrie militaire américaine. Il ne faut pas l'oublier, c'est un élément fondamental dans l'analyse de cette organisation. Voilà. Alors, bien évidemment, les déclarations quand même bousculé un petit peu les Européens. On a assisté pour la première fois, une déclaration, un appel à l'autonomie stratégique de l'Europe, voire même la création d'une armée européenne. Et oui, ce sont des déclarations, une volonté exprimée, mais la question qui se pose, c'est le comment. et quel format aura cette armée européenne. Le comment pour mettre en place une armée européenne, il faut d'abord une volonté politique, un consensus stratégique entre les deux piliers de l'Europe, la France et l'Allemagne. Il faut aussi un consensus au niveau européen entre les deux tendances, celle qui est toujours pour le volet, ou plutôt pour l'euro-atlantisme et l'alignement sur les États-Unis, je parle de l'Europe de l'Est, et vous avez aussi l'autre tendance qui est pour la consolidation des capacités militaires de l'Europe au sein, à travers la solidarité européenne. L'autre question, c'est le format qu'aura cette armée. Qu'est-ce qu'on veut dire par armée européenne? Est-ce une armée à l'intérieur de l'Union européenne ou en dehors de l'Union européenne? Il y a l'indice qui nous permet de dire peut-être c'est en dehors de l'Union européenne, c'est l'initiative d'intervention européenne qui est lancée en dehors qui ne dépend ni de l'Union européenne ni de l'OTAN et qui regroupe 7 ou 8 pays, et qui a pour objectif justement de créer une culture militaire européenne autour d'un noyau solide composé de ces 9 pays, y compris le Royaume-Uni, Brexit ou non. Donc voilà, donc il y a un certain nombre de questions, et je crois que l'OTAN, s'il existe, il continue d'exister, c'est grâce ou à cause de l'absence de cette politique de défense européenne, de l'armée européenne. Voilà. Donc, ce sont des éléments qui nous permettent de soutenir l'idée que l'Alliance, continue d'exister et peut-être en assistant. Mais attention, parce que qu'est-ce que finalement l'Alliance? L'Alliance, c'est l'Alliance Atlantique et l'OTAN, c'est d'abord, il se distingue par sa longévité, c'est qu'elle dure depuis 70 ans. Par son exclusivité, elle est la seule alliance militaire dans le monde. Par son évolution, il s'est doté depuis 1990 de 3 concepts stratégiques. D'accord? Donc, et aujourd'hui, peut-être, il serait temps pour adopter un nouveau concept stratégique autour du renforcement des capacités européennes au sein de l'institution et non contre l'OTAN. Voilà.
Merci Rachid. Youssef, rethink a new paradigm of relationship in Atlantic Basin, I think should lead to take into consideration 2 concepts, human security and positive peace. Can we hope that peace and security will coexist?
Thank you, Bouchra, for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to reflect on these questions. The paper that you allude to reviews briefly the nature of the threats and the challenges facing the Atlantic Basin and offer Southern perspective about the type of frameworks that could enable different kind of policies to address these challenges, these choke points, as you call them. These are frameworks that hope to provide a different understanding of the role of the states, expand the notion of security, and more importantly, make room for this orphan notion we call peace. And then the paper reviews these frameworks by focusing on 3. One is the human security framework. The other one is the positive peace or sustaining peace framework. And the third one is the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Each one of them offers an opportunity for marrying peace and security from different angles. So we don't end up with policies that promote security without peace or focuses on peace without security. Before I present the positive peace or sustaining peace paradigm or framework, I offer the reader an opportunity to challenge some of the powerful assumptions that have informed our understanding of peace and security. We have inherited a tradition where peace is viewed as the order that follows the war, that peace is the mirror image of conflict, that if we understood the pathology of war and analyzed the root causes of conflict, we will build peace. That's what we've inherited. It's what is called negative peace. It's stability and security, but doesn't guarantee peace. It's a state where we are more and more secure and securitized and feeling less and less safe. So, for example, the title of this conference is Choke Points. Policymakers feel that they will be relevant and helpful if they identify the problems and offer the solution. That's the traditional. And what happens is that they overlook the bridges, the things that have worked, that are working. In the paradigm that we've inherited, peace is treated as an exception. And when it's thought about, it usually tends to be described in the context of conflict. In other words, peace in our analysis is not the starting point. It's the outcome of dealing with the problem. And it's not really unusual. Human beings tend to see the world from two different perspectives. A problem to be solved, an opportunity to be seized. But because conflicts are treated as a problem, all our energy goes onto the problem. And problems are good for international relations. It allows others to describe your problem and prescribe solutions. So peace, I can understand, is dangerous because it doesn't give room to the outsiders to, because everything works well. But if we want sustainable policies, we need to do two things. One, analyze and address the challenges in them, but at the same time, make an inventory of what's already working. In Africa, we call them the threads and stitches that hold countries together despite internal contradiction, internal vulnerabilities, and external pressures. Why certain countries in Latin America or in Africa are still, what is it in their immune system that enables them to still function and to remain peaceful? So in the article, I invite the reader to revisit the way we analyze choke points. So we're not only focusing on the negative, but also focusing on what people have, what they have achieved. And there's a great deal of bridges that are taking place that happen both in the North Atlantic and the South Atlantic. The other point that is, so the first one is revisiting or reviewing the powerful assumptions that have informed our understanding of peace and security. The second element in the paper is that we need to treat people, citizens, as viable partners of states if we want the states to remain a relevant organizing structure. One of the problems addressed by the current Secretary General of the United Nations and the President of the General Assembly is that we have overlooked the first three words of the UN Charter, we the peoples, and we jumped to we the states, and therefore conceive of peace as the non-war between states, when in fact many of the choke points and the threats in the Atlantic Basin are driven from below. are driven from people who are suffering from the violence of exclusion, and therefore are not easily only dealt with the state. So how to promote, how to foster people-centered approaches to peace and stability and peace and security is the other point that I mention in the paper. And I end up by saying, because peace tends to be securitized, and because a human security unfortunately gave birth to something called R2P, and therefore has been a contested concept, I propose that if we summon the political will to use the framework offered by the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, then perhaps there are greater chance of addressing the choke points, because in that framework, peace and security are treating as a governance and development function, not simply as a peace and security function.
Thank you, Youssef. Not only focus on negative. Indeed, the fifth edition of Atlantic Currents covers both current issues and future challenges, but it also explores how we can explore Atlantic potential in order to build shared future. So I think we have just 20 minutes left to Q&A session. So please feel free to ask your question, both in English or in French. On the floor. Yes. Please be concise and introduce yourself. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you very much. My name is Kayhan Barzagar. I am from Iran. Thank you very much for inviting me. I wanted to connect between the first speaker and second speaker and to this concept of reclaiming the concept of multilateralism. I think multilateralism is just not only on economic exchanges, it goes to construction of identity, politics, and other things. So my point is that for bringing a new kind of multilateralism, we need to strengthen a kind of national system, so that every party can play its own share of stability and sustainable peace, or perhaps in the concept of strengthening regionalism, so that we get to that concept of multilateralism. It is very important because we are dealing with a lot of identical issues inside the country, and there is a great deal of establishing political consensus amongst the different ruling elites to accept the concept of cooperation at the global level. So my point is that perhaps we need to reclaim the concept of multilateralism in a more sophisticated way that can go through national system. But thank you very much.
Thank you. Please, excuse me.
Merci beaucoup. Je suis Moubaraglo, je suis Senior Fellow Police Center of the New South. En 91, j'étais encore jeune étudiant à l'École nationale d'administration en France. Je faisais un rapport sur la relation euro-atlantique dans le domaine de la sécurité. Donc, j'ai travaillé sur l'OTAN. Et la conclusion de notre rapport, c'était que dans le futur, chaque région va gérer sa propre sécurité. Bon, maintenant, le niveau mondial va tout amener un appui logistique, mais que la sécurité va être régionalisée. 28 ans après, ou 27, la question que je pose à M. Houdaigui, c'est est-ce qu'aujourd'hui on est dans cette dynamique de régionalisation de la gestion de la sécurité? Ensuite, est-ce que le monde a vraiment besoin de l'OTAN? Parce qu'on a les Nations Unies, les missions de paix, etc. Donc, quel est l'intérêt de l'OTAN aujourd'hui pour le monde, à part les États-Unis?
On va rassembler, je crois, des questions et répondre à la fin. D'accord, on prendra 3 ou 4 questions.
Thank you. Emil Chileno from the Dominican Republic, the Global Foundation for Democracy and Development. One of the issues we usually hear nowadays, especially in the American media and American publications on international relations, is that the liberal world order is under threat. And we've been hearing that over and over again in different ways. But I ask you, do you think there ever was a real liberal world order in the sense that the United States, after the fall of the Soviet Union and its liberal hegemonic power, basically pushed forward a set of policies that now we are thinking that are being dismantled? However, there's a new argument coming up in academia, especially from Stephen Walt at Harvard, that there really wasn't a liberal world order, that it was basically one party being more powerful than the others, and the world basically going along that party. But that's changing. Do you think there really was a liberal world order, and do you think that the world is leading towards a revised world order? Thank you.
Thank you. Please give the mic to Mr. Amr Moussa. Former. Thank you.
Well, I'm from Egypt, and I'm raising a point concerning the choke points which the panel has determined as 3: peace, security, and development. I wish to add, or to suggest that you add, the cultural relations in the world that have become a source of tension among states or between states. So the cultural crisis is one of the choke points of this century, with the religious intolerance, racial discrimination, and all the policies of populism that has no control, that can go beyond what we all hope: stability and progress and peace, peaceful relations in the world.
So, thank you, Mr. Amr Moussa, for reminding me that we have 2 chapters in the Atlantic currents dealing with culture in the Atlantic basin. Another question? Yes, Kim. Please give the mic.
Kim Dozier with the Daily Beast. I wanted to ask of our chapter writer on President Trump, do you see alternative centers of power? Do you see other U.S. allies stepping up to fill the gap and lead the way in multilateralism?
Okay. Question.
Jawad Kardoudi, je suis président de l'Institut marocain des relations internationales et j'ai écouté donc ce qui a été dit ce matin. Je pense qu'au-delà de la paix, de l'environnement, du multilatéralisme, nous vivons actuellement également un problème, à mon avis, très important, c'est celui des inégalités sociales. Et d'ailleurs, c'est la montée du populisme, du fait donc de ces inégalités sociales qui a entraîné donc la défiance vis-à-vis du multilatéralisme. Alors ma question aux panélistes, comment faire pour réduire ce problème des inégalités sociales qui, comme on vient de le voir en France, est extrêmement important et parfois violent. Merci.
Merci. Une autre question juste à... Merci.
Merci. Général Dominique Trinquant, je suis l'ancien chef de la mission militaire française auprès des Nations Unies. Ma question a trait naturellement à la sécurité. Dans le lien transatlantique, il y a les 2 côtés de l'Atlantique. Et pour revenir sur l'Union européenne, pour qu'il y ait une défense, il faut qu'il y ait une menace. Et donc je voudrais savoir quelle menace vous voyez et vous analysez aujourd'hui dans le contexte actuel qui puisse mener les Européens à avoir une défense de l'Europe, pour ne pas dire une défense européenne.
Merci. Mic to Mrs. Neelam, Ambassador Neelam from India.
Thank you. I'm Neelam Dev from Gateway House in Mumbai. My question is, what is multilateralism? It really became unilateralism, which we were talking about. And the best example of that, of course, is the dominance of the dollar, especially as sanctions became the policy of the United States. And everyone is forced to fall into line with that. The other question is that, a lot of discussion is around Trump and the rest. But actually, a lot of leaders like President Trump came before him and many more have come after him in the Atlantic basin alone, even if we're not looking at other parts of the world. So it's a phenomenon rather than a personality that we have to try to understand. Thank you.
Thank you, Nilam. The last question, I think. Yes? Our senior fellow. Yeah.
Isabel Sarkoch. Is it me?
You?
Yeah. Isabel Sarkoch, senior fellow. I have a question that's a follow-up on his point on inequality. I think a major fundamental threat to peace, multilateralism, and cooperation is increasing inequality. And I would want to identify a work that I think is really central, which is by Mariano Mazzucato, that points out that capitalism, as a capitalism system that works only for the rich, is the root cause of increasing inequality. We need a capitalism that is totally different from the capitalism we have seen that America has led. And I mean, my point is, really, we don't have to have gloom and doom if we change our vision of what capitalism should be a capitalism for all, not a capitalism for the multinational, for the big American corporations, for the North, etc. So I would just urge that her work and many of her colleagues become more widespread among political thinkers.
Thank you. So I think 3 comments, 5 questions. First question is about chaque région ou la régionalisation de la dynamique de la sécurité, je suppose. C'est bien ça, sa propre sécurité.
D'abord, la question sur l'OTAN, les conditions qui ont créé l'OTAN en 1949, bien évidemment, ont disparu, à savoir l'URSS qui a disparu. Et la question était posée lorsque vous avez écrit votre mémoire, justement, en 1990-91, c'est sur le sens de l'OTAN, en l'absence d'un ennemi, de l'ennemi qui, en fait, comme les Européens et les Américains ont créé l'OTAN parce qu'ils avaient peur de l'URSS. Hein. Donc c'était, voilà, pour le dire tout simplement. Ces mêmes questions dont on parle maintenant ont été soulevées en 1991. La réponse était que l'OTAN doit s'adapter à l'environnement de l'époque, au contexte de l'époque. D'ailleurs, c'est pourquoi l'organisation avait lancé, à partir de 1994, un certain nombre de partenariats, notamment en Méditerranée, le dialogue méditerranéen de l'OTAN, et avec d'autres partenaires mondiaux. Vient en 1999 deuxième concept stratégique, hein, en 2010 un troisième concept stratégique. Moi, ce que j'observe, hein, bon, je ne suis pas un pro ou un anti-OTAN, hein, mais ce que j'observe, les indices dont je dispose aujourd'hui ne me permettent pas de dire que cette organisation va disparaître immédiatement ou dans le court ou le moyen terme. Au contraire, vous avez certains éléments qui renforcent les dernières manœuvres, les plus grandes manœuvres militaires, exercices militaires post-bipolaires. C'était entre le fin octobre, 25 octobre et 7 novembre, avec la participation des 2 pays partenaires qui sont connus pour leur neutralité, à savoir la Suède et la Finlande. Je crois que c'est la question, il faut reformuler la question autour de deux disons, interrogations. La première, quelle est la trajectoire actuelle de cette alliance et vers quelle, disons, tendance ou vers quelle tendance va évoluer. La deuxième question, la deuxième interrogation, est-ce que disons, la crise de confiance euro-atlantique est passagère ou c'est un point d'inflexion ou de rupture? C'est les 2 questions qui ont structuré mon travail. En fait, je l'ai dit encore, parce que dans ce type, il faut éviter de, disons, accorder plus d'espace à la réflexion qu'à la réaction. Vous avez des Européens qui sont anti-OTAN dans leur analyse. Et d'autres qui sont pro. Voilà.
Merci. Une autre question sur les États-Unis et le nouvel ordre, US and New World Order.
Actually, there were quite few questions
related
to the US, so I'll try to just lump them in my observation. Whether there used to be ever a liberal world order? Well, it depends what we call liberal. Is it political liberalism or economic liberalism? There was a world order established by those who won the Second World War. And whether we like it or not, the world of international affairs is made out of realpolitik. So those who won that war established certain rules. That's why when the system was created and the United Nations was created according to those rules. It already started suffering problems when you had this first wave of independence in the 60s in Asia and Africa. And then you had the Cold War, and then, in my opinion, that world order was shaky from the beginning. Ironically enough, and because there was no liberal order from the political point of view, in my opinion, there was an economic liberal order, and even a neoliberal order that was established. And that's what has led us today to where we are, and made impossible to have a liberal, from the political sense, a liberal world order. Which leads me to the question of inequality and capitalism. The lady who discussed capitalism and said that we need a capitalism that works for people, I think it's an oxymoron. You can't have, we tried, and people tried, and scholars went into great lengths to find ways to make capitalism look like a human, with a human face. So we had corporate responsibility. We had a lot of coined phrases that, in my opinions, are nonsensical. Capitalism is a mode of production, but it's also a way of social interactions and relationship. That social interactions and relationship cannot be changed. And I don't see, I mean, I would phrase it differently what the lady said. We need a new economic order, a new economic system. The name, I don't think it could be called capitalism if we want more equality. Regarding the question about the demise of the US soft power and whether there will be new powers stepping in, we've read and heard that you have the BRICS, you have China, I do not think that in the short term and even in the medium term you will have a big superpower step in the shoes of the United States. I think the United States, even if it has lost part of its soft power around the world, will still be an important player. You will have other players coming in. You have China, India, Russia, of course, and also regional powers. In the Middle East, we'll see that already happening. And I'm afraid that in the short term and medium term, we'll be going towards more, to use the phrase that you've been using so far, choke points and conflicts and problems on the short and medium term. Until we realize, and I hope not too long, that we need to reestablish and create something else, a new order where there will be, if not equality, at least less inequalities, both economic and political.
Ok, sorry. Okay. Nous avons deux autres questions, une sur les inégalités sociales et aussi multilateralism and national system. Okay. Youssef.
I think we need to demystify the notion that multilateralism is the norm. Historically, it's the exception. Multilateralism has been often, if not always, an exception. When it starts meeting the needs and the interests of the powerful, then they will create minilateralism. Look at the Asia Investment and Infrastructure Bank. 82 countries, starting capital half of that of the World Bank. Look at the Shanghai Cooperation Council. So it has always been like that. When it's no longer, takes care of the interest, it is either abused, which are the emerging new powers are doing with the UN, or just discarded and mini multilateralism spring up. On the issue of inequalities, the reason I have mentioned the 2030 agenda as a framework for addressing choke points or discrepancies or inequality is because in the last goal 17, calls for addressing inequalities among states and inequalities within states. You cannot have a viable governance structure either nationally or regionally or internationally that excludes. And that's why we have, as mentioned in the report, such a huge trust deficit among states and citizens. In terms of inequality, if you look at the successful countries, I don't know how many of you have heard of the Global Positive Peace Index that is issued since 2012 by the Institute for Economics and Peace. And they have ranked countries along a number of factors. It's called the 8 pillars of sustainable peace. And one of them is the role the state plays as an equalizer between those who have and those who have not. The policies between the private and the public. The type of social security nets that are established to mitigate the excesses of capitalism. So it's not surprising that you find Denmark, South Korea, and a few others among the top, with the US and some other from the hundreds down, simply because there was no system to equalize these excesses.
Thank you. Une autre question sur la sécurité dans le lien transatlantique. C'est bien ça, Youness. Brièvement.
En général, elle a posé la question sur la défense européenne.
La défense européenne.
Oui.
Donc,
sur, voilà. La lecture en fait des textes, les textes stratégiques européens distinguent en fait deux types de menaces et risques. Une menace stratégique, c'est la Russie, et des menaces sécuritaires du sud de la Méditerranée. C'est les deux types de... Est-ce que pour autant l'Europe a besoin d'une défense? Moi, je dirais, est-ce qu'elle a les moyens de se doter d'une défense? Il y a une prise de conscience. Dernièrement, la Commission a adopté, disons, a mis à la disposition des pays européens un budget de, quand même d'investissement de 13 milliards de dollars dans l'industrie militaire pour encourager l'industrie militaire européenne intégrée. Je crois que c'est quand même un message, c'est un indice qui nous permet de constater qu'il y a aujourd'hui une prise de conscience, il y a un processus qui est lancé qui va peut-être aboutir à dans combien de temps, je ne sais pas. Vous savez, le temps de système d'armes, il est très très long. Hein. Pour construire un système d'armes, une industrie militaire, c'est très très long, il faut beaucoup de temps et beaucoup de moyens. Mais je pense que les Européens ont tiré les leçons de la crise de confiance qui a été provoquée par les déclarations du président américain. Voilà.
D'accord. Donc il nous restait une dernière question. I just remember the 3 key words: multilateralism, Trump, and the rest.
I don't think when I, well, correct me if I'm wrong, but when I tried to summarize what was in that chapter, I did not say that we need to focalize the attention on Trump. For me, Trump is a product of, as you said, the word phenomenon. So I agree with you. The media has put the onus on Trump, and it's his personality, it's his tweets that basically make the news. I think it's much deeper than that. It's something that has to do with the essence of the United States as a country in itself. What Trump, I'm not even sure, by the way, I cannot say for sure, but I don't think that Mr. Trump believes in everything he says or claims. I'm not sure. I think he is savvy enough to understand that there is a spirit that he needs to capitalize on to gain that momentum and serves his interests. That's basically what I believe. So for me, if we want to address the deeper causes of what's happening, it has to do with the essence of the United States as a country. And I think this is a question that Americans have to deal with themselves. And also what type of relationship that country has to develop with the rest of the world in the future, especially, as I said, it's a country that cannot afford having the same power that it used to have decades ago in the future.
Alors, si vous permettez, je vais donner le micro à Monsieur le Ministre, Ahmed Ould Ahmedo, mais je vous prie, Monsieur le Ministre, d'être très très bref, parce que pour qu'on soit dans les temps.
Merci bien. Quelques observations. Premièrement, l'OTAN. The NATO, when it was established, was North Atlantic. And as you may remember, it has been operational in Afghanistan and also in Iraq, I suppose. So not its early areas. And this is forcing us to ask a question, why? So the order, in fact, is changing. And since the end of the Cold War, we are in a transition. And my question to you is, this transition needs reaction, answers from panel like you. And my question to you is, what will be the consequence on people in the South? Because the policy today is more focused on retreat to national policies, like during between the two wars, World War I, World War II. Les intérêts sont plutôt nationaux. What will be the fate of citizens in the South? Left, if they are lucky, with liberal government, democratic government, rich government, or when they are left alone with no deterrence. I'm not talking of intervention, but deterrence or challenge to do. And I see it as a threat to security.
Merci,
worldwide.
Monsieur le Ministre. Youness, Rachid, Youness,
Je veux juste souligner que l'Alliance en elle-même, elle protège le territoire de l'espace euro-atlantique sous coupole de l'article 5 de la défense collective. Donc voilà, elle a utilisé cet article une seule fois, c'est après les attentats en septembre. Hein. Donc c'est une alliance politico-militaire. Elle a, comme je l'ai souligné tout à l'heure, elle a lancé un certain nombre d'initiatives de coopération avec le Sud, les pays du Sud de la Méditerranée, mais d'ordre essentiellement militaire et sécuritaire. Hein. Donc, elle n'intervient pas dans les domaines autres que ces deux domaines de compétences. Voilà, il n'a aucun impact sur l'autre organisation qui en fait, comme vous le savez, qui travaille dans le domaine de la coopération économique et politique, c'est bien l'Union européenne. Voilà, c'est ce que je peux dire.
Il faut ajouter deux phrases parce que c'est partie liée à ce qu'on avait dit avant. Monsieur le ministre, on avait discuté de ça à plusieurs reprises, on a servi dans certains pays tous les deux. Malheureusement, qu'on appelle ça intervention ou autre, ou pression, on peut pas penser, vu ce système international qui n'est pas, malheureusement, qui n'est pas le système idoine pour une solidarité internationale de coopération, pouvoir faire face à ces nombreux défis, que ce soit en Afrique ou ailleurs, et intervenir pour, disons, mettre un peu de mesure dans l'intervention des États et leurs relations avec leurs citoyens. Vous savez comment le Conseil de sécurité est souvent divisé sur certaines questions, et ça, on le voit de plus en plus. Donc moi, malheureusement, je ne vois pas une possibilité d'intervention positive pour ce système dans les années qui viennent, lorsqu'on aura des problèmes dans certains pays, États vis-à-vis de leurs citoyens, tout simplement parce que l'appétit n'y est plus. Et deuxièmement, ce système, comme je disais tout à l'heure, arrive un peu et s'essouffle, arrive à sa fin. Et malheureusement, je n'ai pas envie de finir la discussion sur un ton pessimiste ou optimiste. C'est ni pessimiste ni optimiste. Vous faites l'optimisme et le pessimisme, c'est pour les gens qui regardent les choses se faire, l'histoire se faire. Si on agit, on n'est ni pessimiste ni optimiste. Donc il faut agir.
Une dernière distorsion au règlement, quand c'est donc M. Youssef Mahmoud, peut-être... mais vous avez 30 secondes.
Very brief. When I was listening to you, I think it brings me back 25 years ago. The same issues and the same concerns. But today, I think we should be very frank. The situation is so complicated, and I think it's time now to really review all the instruments and the tools of the Bretton Woods agreements and so on. The UN, as far as peace and security, as far as fighting against terrorism, one country alone cannot face all these challenges. So I think today we are in a crisis with the UN, peace and security, even our partners. I'm speaking from a southern perspective, because today, people from the south, we need to partners to build. Of course, we know that we need to do our own homework internally, but to work together, cooperation, trade, even WTO, for example, it's not working anymore. We have problems everywhere, so we need today to really reflect and to start working with commitment, with the vision, and with different tools which are in conformity with our aspirations as countries from the South.
I can't argue with that. It's true. À bon entendeur, salut alors.
Okay. So just a kind reminder, tomorrow it will be, I think, a roundtable plenary about NATO. So you can, discuss more about this topic. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. I hope you will enjoy the report and look forward to welcoming you to the upcoming events and activities of the Policy Center for the New South. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your attention. We will now break for the networking lunch and reconvene at 2:30. Enjoy your meals.